You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksın kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. My name is Kaan Bayazit. I am joined, as always, from New York City by Sinan Schwarting, and as a special guest today, or my dog as well. And as a special guest today, Kartal Ogur is also joining us from Scotland.
Hi guys, it's an absolute pleasure to be on the podcast again. Sadly, we don't have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. It's a bit more on the depression side of things, but we're going to get in and dive into the Fenerbahçe derby and also talk about the Rizespor game next week and also some other news that we've had in the last week.
Yeah.
The trifecta.
Indeed. Sinan, how was your week?
I'm sure everyone my Beşiktaş espresso cup here, by the way. As you can all see, the playoff beard is still in effect. I'm looking a little patchy on the monitor here, but so which means that the Knicks are still successfully playing basketball, and Wolverine is still in the press. You know, at least. You know, that's
so
what
is
I'm
that
going
beard
for.
coming
my
off
face
completely when the playoffs are, when you're out of the playoffs, or when the Knicks become what did they call them in basketball? Did they call it world champions in the NBA or?
I don't know officially. You know, I think that was more of a
world champions of the USA.
That's right. I will take the beard down, especially because the weather's getting warmer. In fact, it's already like almost too warm for the beard. So yeah, that's the plan. But it's bringing too much luck for me to trim it down just yet.
Not for Beşiktaş.
We don't have much to play for at the moment.
We're not in any playoffs.
I wish I had reason.
We do have plenty to play for. We have
European football.
European football to play for.
Yeah, in fact, it could double as the cup beard. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. You are crackling a little bit for me, by the way, Sinan. Are you close to the microphone?
Yeah, I'm right here. It's. I also noticed that my feed is a little choppy, so maybe it's an internet issue at the moment.
Might be.
To be honest, Sinan sounds fine to me.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's just on my end.
I'll try to hardwire it for 1 second. Keep going.
All right. I'll switch it to a close up to our boy from Scotland for a second. There we go. Kartal, what did you think of the derby? How did you experience the week? Let's get straight into it, I guess. Let's start talking about the derby. The Beşiktaş Fenerbahçe derby that ended in 2-1 in favor of the hosts Fenerbahçe, who are of course second in the league standings and remain second, but are now within 4 points of Galatasaray. And I think how many games are left in the season? That was
5, I believe.
5 games, 5 or 4.
Yeah.
So they still have a chance, but we'll have to see whether they can get back into their dust. But for us, bad news, because now we are we've slipped down to 5th position, Kartal, and we have, who is it? Rizespor hot in our necks, I think, as well. But Başakşehir have gone over us. They're 1 point above us right now. Of course, it is the one picture I did not have lined up. But yeah, Unfortunately, we are no longer in fourth position. That means that if we do not win the cup and Trabzon doesn't win the cup, then theoretically we could still miss out on Europe. Fifth place would in theory still give us a spot in Europe if either us, of course, or Trabzonspor win the cup. But how are you looking towards that right now?
Well, first of all, to be honest with you boys, I wasn't expecting much from the derby on Saturday. Going into it, I felt that we'd probably lose like 2-0 because I feel as if the difference in the squad quality between us and Fenerbahçe is very high just now. I mean, not that they are playing phenomenal football themselves at the moment. Ismail Kartal especially has made a lot of mistakes as of late with some of his decisions, as well as the off-field shenanigans from Ali Koch. As a result of Fenerbahçe falling behind in the title race and also losing out on the Super Cup as they fielded their under-19s and then pulled them off the field and being eliminated in Europe to Olympiacos after some controversial decisions from Ismail Kartal. Not starting with Fred in the first game and then subbing him off just before extra time in the second game. So despite that kind of bad momentum they had coming into this, I still felt that they would get the better of us in the game. And unfortunately, my thoughts turned true. It was a very, very depressing first half for us. They completely dominated the game. I mean, let's be honest, even before Al Mustati gets sent off for a very clumsy late challenge, they had like 4 or 5 chances. They scored one. They made it 1-0. They had a 1-0 lead going into the break. Whereas I believe the only possession we had was through Mucci. Well, even in that position itself, he kind of messed it up a wee bit. He took a bit of a, what we call in Scotland, an elephant touch. It was when you take it too big of a touch. And it kind of ran, the ball went too far away from him and it shut down the angle for his shot opportunity. Apart from that, we didn't really have much going for us in that first half. In the second half, to be honest, I thought we kind of balanced out the game. Like, we weren't considerably better than they were, but we fought a lot better. And it was an even game in the second half. If Maleka had a great chance on the header, if he scored that, it would have been 1 each. But unfortunately, we conceded a second goal. It was Isfan Cankavesi that scored that second goal in the second half for them. It was Batshuayi, an old player actually, who scored a great goal for them in the first half. It was great team play. But if we scored that if Maleka scored that header, that was 1 each, and then it was game on. At the end, Cenk did get a late goal, a consolation goal. I was looking for that word there.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal goal from Cenk Tosun, but unfortunately it was kind of too little, too late. So the game was, to be honest, quite what I expected. I wasn't happy with the first half performance at all. Well, really bad even before the red card. In the second half, despite being 10 men, I thought we played a lot better. But obviously, when you look at the grand scheme of things, if you look at the 2 halves overall, I think the team that deserved the game was Fenerbahçe, and I think the result was fair.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, there's not much to say on the victory itself. The red card as well, there's not much that we can say about that in terms of was it a correct call or not. I think as soon as I saw it, and I think you mentioned this as well off air, Kata, like as soon as you saw it, you thought that was going to be a red, and the first thing that jumped in my mind was, he's probably lucky he got off with yellow there. That could have been a red. I didn't think it was a malicious fall at all. But usually when you tackle someone right above the ankle with your studs, that is something that in the past I've always been taught it's above the ankle, it's too high, and that's potentially a red card. If it's underneath the ankle, then yellow should be fine. But we have a situation later in the game which was being on Twitter was being discussed a lot, and on of course on the talk shows and stuff like that. It's this one where I forget who it is, which Fenerbahçe player it is, but if you look at that position here, let's have a quick look at it. Let's see. I
think that's from a different game. The other position.
No, it's the same game.
Because if you look at the sleeve, that's not our shirt. It's a yellow sponsor on the sleeve.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the same game because it's our shirts, is it not?
No, it's not. I think that's Kassenpasha away shirt. It's blue.
On the right, on the right side, that's a dark blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, regardless, so this was something that they were talking about in on Twitter and stuff like that. There's double standards, and I fully agree that there's double standards. But with this one, I cannot agree because look, you can clearly see Musrati's foot is above the ankle. That is very dangerous. You can potentially break someone's leg with that. Like, because obviously his foot is resting on the ground, and then the pressure is being put in between, so to speak, you know, so there's a much larger potential of breakage, if that makes sense. Whereas with the second one, you don't really have that as much. Because it's under the ankle, you're still stamping down on the ground rather than in the air, if that makes sense. So usually those just come away with yellow cards. So I don't think that's a valid argument from our side, so to speak, that should have been a red card for Fenerbahçe in another game, for example. And let's have a look at the lineup as well, guys, because what did you make of the lineup? Sinan, I'll throw to you since you haven't spoken much yet. What did you make of that lineup that we had to field?
You know, I had nothing really bad to say about it, to be honest. I mean, obviously nobody wants to see Necip as a right back in the year 2024, right? But
never. I mean, I think even back. Do you remember our Europa League campaign? I think he played a couple of games at right back then, when we beat Liverpool. And I think I've been saying for nearly 10 years, like, Necip, if you play him as a central defender or whatever, okay, never play him at right back, because I think Bilic did it quite a few times, play Necip at right back, and always a disaster.
I think against Liverpool though, it was Necip and Pedro Franco at centre back, and Serdar Kurtuluş played right back, and then Opari played left back.
Yeah, but I mean that season he played right back quite a few times, and it was always a unfortunate situation. Although, I mean, I don't know what you guys thought about his game. For me, Necip didn't particularly stand out. I know some people were raging at him online, but I felt that was a little unfair because, I mean, he has been having a good season. It's not quite really his fault that he's being
played
out
of position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I was gonna say I do recall him making one kind of blunder, you know, but it didn't result in the goal. I just remember being like, oh, that was, you know, Necip doing something stupid, haha. But I wouldn't say he stood out as being especially bad. I don't know. I mean, who stood out as being especially bad in this game? Obviously, Musrati because of the one mistake, but like even that sort of human error. And like, by the way, just to go back to your previous point, although I think it probably still merits a red card, it's worth mentioning that Musrati is like fully looking a different direction, like not at all. Like there's, I would say, zero intentionality in that. So I don't think people should like assume he's a dirty player. Apparently also, and this is worth noting, this was his first red card in 4 years. Yep. So he's not at all like a dirty player. This isn't a feature. It's more of a, a bad day. Of course, with that said, he's had a couple of bad days and in inopportune moments, no less. But you know, whatever. I don't think people should be like freaking out too crazily about it.
Yeah, going back to your point about Necip, Sinan, he actually did ruin the offside trap for their first goal. So Fred played the diagonal ball to Tadic, and Tadic laid it off the Batshuayi with his chest. So actually, Masuaku, Crawley, Worrell were all in a straight line, and the Necip man marked Tadic. So if Necip pulled in with the line, that would have been offside. So you could argue that first goal was on him. And I also think, to be honest, Necip was lucky to stay on the field, because there was a very, when he already had a yellow card, he played quite a bad tackle on one of their players. I can't remember who it was exactly in the second half. So I think he was quite lucky to stay on the field, to be honest with you. Do I blame Necip? No, I do not. I blame Serdar Toprak. I mean, Necip Uysal is a great utility player for us. I think, although he lacks talent, he actually is very serviceable as a centre back, but he should not be playing right back in 2024. he shouldn't be playing in the midfield in 2024. Just now, the only place he should be playing is centre back. I know Honours. We don't. No one likes Honours. Well, I actually think when he's got good confidence, he's actually a decent player. But this year, his confidence has been completely destroyed by our toxic fan base. So I think that's what's really affected his performances. He has been terrible this season, but despite how bad he's been, I still think he should be starting this game over Najib because at least he is a natural right back.
But was he fit? Was he in the? Let's have a look at the bench here, because you're talking about Ono, right? Like, let's have a look.
I'm sure he was on the bench.
Let's have a look here. Was he on the bench?
He was. Yeah, he was.
Okay. Yeah, that's.
And you could theoretically have played Tayyip as well. Like, he's played left back recently, right? Like, there were other options. I mean, but it's not like I'm not gonna be like, oh, Serdar Toprak like screwed this up by playing Necip, though, right? I mean, we can all agree, like. It's maybe not the best choice, but like, I don't know. I guess it's in a way it's hard to bench Necip given the season he's had, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and one more thing, because you brought it up and it made me remember. But so obviously Necip was involved in that offside. Not an offside position, but their goal. He lifted the offside trap. But also a couple of minutes before that, I think like 5 minutes before that, or 2-3 minutes before that, right after our red card, I think we got a free kick, and there was a penalty position, but Necip was offside. And I think if he isn't offside, that's always a penalty. And then we would have had a penalty at 0-0. So that could have changed.
That was the mistake I was thinking of. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I think most of the hate online was, because of his role in the goal, and then of course also his role in the fact that he made it easy for the referee not to have to go to VAR for the potential penalty, because he wasn't actually the ball wasn't headed towards him or anything like that. So. In truth, VAR could have still said, hey, come and take a look. But I think they took the easy way out and said, well, this guy's offside, let's not...
pass offside.
Yeah, let's not...
pass offside.
Exactly, so I think they kind of chickened out a little bit there, which I would understand if it was 0-0 in a derby game and 11 versus 11. I think if you just sent off a guy with a red card... through to a VAR intervention, I don't think you should just chicken out on a potential penalty because there's somebody with a passive offside. He's not involved in the play, so I think they should have still referred the referee to VAR there. But, I mean, obviously, we can't complain too much about that particular decision. What did irritate me throughout the game, though, was just... and Serdar Toprak also said this after the game, just how much the referee was in favor of the home side. In Dutch we say een thuisfluiter, which basically literally means a home whistler. So the home side was definitely getting how should I put it? Like at every 50-50 position, he would give it to Fener, but also just every time they would go down, they'd give a fall. Whenever one of our players would go down, he wouldn't. You know those types of games. Everyone's watched them. But
the
also
friendly whistle. We'll call it the friendly whistle that they had.
And he gave us a yellow card really early on. Was that the one for Necip? I don't remember exactly. Somebody got after 9 minutes got a yellow card already.
It was Necip, yeah, exactly.
And then there's this position later in the game where Szymanski is harassing Mucci, pulling his shoulder, almost taking his shirt off. Can't get the guy down. He falls over, and then he comes in with a really bad challenge as well to just kick him, to fall him, a professional fall. But it was and he doesn't even give a yellow card. And there
it's a yellow card every day of the week. That
of
100%.
Course, yeah. I mean, just he falled him 5 or 6 times in one position, and then nothing works. So he decides to let me just kick him then. I'm not gonna bring that image up because I don't want this video to get flagged. But we have a short up on our YouTube channel actually with that exact position. So if you want to watch it in more detail, go watch that short. Lots of Fenerbahçe fans in the comments there. But yeah, that's just for me, that was one of those positions that really defined the referee's game. And also later on in the game, if you remember, right after we score, Jetson goes through on goal, and he gets the ball, and then Livakovic clears it, and then
It was all ball.
it was all ball. He had no man whatsoever, and the ref gives the foul on Jetson and a free kick to Fenerbahçe, and like just little things like that throughout the game, from the very first whistle to the end. Like the referee was fully on their corner. I'm not saying that he butchered the game, because I don't think there was enough in terms of, like, it's not like he, like, you remember a couple of years ago in Kadıköy in the cup, I think we had like a really good scoring opportunity disallowed for offside from Negredo, I think it was, and it was nowhere near offside, things like that. Ali Palabiyuk, I think it was.
Are you talking about the league game there? We had the goal chopped off.
Yes,
it was onside.
That one. So like,
that was September 2017 in the league.
Yeah. Oh, in the league, was it? Okay. Well, regardless, it wasn't that type of game, I'd say. It was just one of those games where, okay, the referee clearly picked a side, but not excessively so where it becomes gross or anything like that. Because I think that's mainly due to the fact that we were so bad and we couldn't really put up enough of a fight to make it into a proper contest. I think if that would have been the case, then the referee would have become a much greater factor. I think now there wasn't really any necessity for him to help out more than he, than he did. He gave them a little bit of backwind, so to speak. You know, when you're riding your bicycle and you've got the wind up your back. That's kind of what the referee felt like for Fenerbahçe on the weekend. But obviously, still, regardless of that, fully deserved victory for them. I don't think at any point, other than that Muleka chance that Kartal pointed out, where if we make it 1-1 there, maybe they get nervous. We've seen them get nervous a lot over the past couple of months, really ever since the turn of the year. So maybe if we score there...
Didn't we have a pretty decent chance after our goal as well? Was that was actually the Jetson one, wasn't it? Where he came up on the keeper.
Yeah. That was that one position. You could hear the stadium go, ooh. They like all kind of clenched their butt cheeks simultaneously, like 50,000 people clenching their butt cheeks. If you want to hear what that sounds like, you just have to watch that particular play of the game, and it's just 50,000 people going, their butts just.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I thought they were very nervous in the second half. Because that dominant football that they played in the first half, it was no longer there in that second half. As I said, we balanced out the game. We didn't dominate or anything. We didn't fully take control, but we balanced out the game where you felt as if, this is just a game that's going right down the middle. And that's talking about that second half. Obviously, the first half they dominated. So I think they were very nervous in that second half, and they were worried, or maybe Besiktas are going to do another comeback and beat us like we have in a couple of times in the last few years, where we've went goals down, we've went a man down, and it's not mattered. We've came back in one game. So I think, despite how bad we were in that first half, in that second half they did get nervous, and they did pull back because of that. So I think it wasn't, or it's one of those games where you think they might get nervous. I think they actually did.
Yeah. And I would say that, I think it's a credit to the team and maybe to the coach that we didn't fold, right? Because that was a scenario where we have so little to play for. I mean, you could argue we really need fourth place or whatever, but I mean, I think we all know at this point we're going for the cup and hoping for the best. I think the response was pretty decent from the team in that second half, and of course, in part it's their nerves, but in the first half, they probably could have made it 3 or 4-0 on, if we're going to be 100% honest. Especially even in the first 10 minutes, they had Ferdi had that great opportunity. Batshuayi had one, which Mert did well to save.
Yeah, Mert made 2-3 really good saves in the first half.
Yeah, he did.
He
was very good in the first half.
Exactly, but credit to the guys, and I think in the last match talked a little bit about how camaraderie seemed to be a little better, how there was a bit of a spat, between two guys, and I forget who it was that came in to defend one of our other guys.
Type came in to defend Mucci.
Yeah, from
exactly.
Seal.
And I feel like this was a good sign in that regard. This last match, in that like the team got their shit together a little bit in the second half, started looking more competitive, got a few chances on goal. Right, Muleka could have stolen one. I mean, really, right? Like if Irfan Can Kahveci doesn't score that one goal, which is like I wouldn't say against the run of play, but it's not like they were really pushing for a goal much of that second half.
It kind of came, it kind of felt
kind of came out of nowhere.
It was a perfect moment for them to score because I think, like you guys are saying, like the game was more balanced in the second half, and the longer you go, it being 1-0, the more chances there's going to be where we score a wonder goal like we did at the end. Like, I mean, if Irfan Can doesn't score that 2-0 and we score that goal at the end, then, you know, their entire stadium goes silent, and I think they all start spontaneously crying, as we have seen a couple of times over the last decade with Fenerbahçe, that they have a complete nervous breakdown when things are going down the shitter. But,
yeah, no, I exactly. No, and so in that sense, I think there are you don't want to be in a position where you're taking positives from a loss in a derby ever, right? But I mean, we're here. Let's be honest. This is, I think, now statistically our worst season in a long time. Is that Kartal? You're our stat guy lately. Is it?
Yeah.
Didn't you come in? Or didn't you say this is our worst season?
No, it was Jan that done the calculation. My twin brother, for those who don't know, he done that calculation, and
who we will have on right now. I just have to change the graphic to say Özcan, and then, you know.
That's right. Yeah, maybe you're a spy. You could be him.
I could be. That's the thing. You never know. So Özcan done the calculation 2 years ago, which was our worst season since 97-98. Our points per game was 1.55. Just now, I believe we're on 1.5 points per game. But obviously, we've still got, what we said, 4 or 5 games left to play, so we could still have technically a better season than that now. But we have broken a record for the amount of losses we've had in a season. And also, it's the first time in, I believe, 9 years where we've lost all four derbies, which is really bad. So the saving grace of this season could be the cup. But that's the only thing we really have left, to be honest, at this point. It's been a disgrace in every other shape and form.
Didn't we set a negative record as far as like not winning X amount of games in a row?
We set a negative record with 13 losses in the season.
There we go. But didn't we like not win in like 6 matches or something? And that was like
5. 5. Yeah.
It's been a dreadful season. I think the only reason why our point count is higher than it was a couple of years ago, I think the 2005-06 season or something like that, we had a pretty low point count, and then obviously 97-98. But obviously this season we're at 51 points, but there's a couple more games in the season, of course, as well. But it's just, for me, from the seasons I've consciously watched, this is by far the worst season, I would say. Because usually you still have these glimmers of hope, and we do have that this season with Simi. We can't forget about that, and I definitely think there have been a couple of bright spots here and there, but like I seem to remember, like in 2005, 2006, we had Gökhan Gülec and Bobo come in January, and they both really exploded. They had a great game, great campaign. Bobo, of course, grew out to be somewhat of a legend, I would say. I mean, for me at least, he has earned that status. Gökhan Gülec had a great first 6 months at Beşiktaş. Unfortunately, he couldn't continue that, but those two definitely gave that season some much needed color. Now, of course, if we go on and we win the cup, I think there will be a little bit of color added. But
sure.
At the end of the day, is it enough to salvage a dreadful campaign? I don't think so.
I want to say one more thing about our match this weekend, because I thought this was actually crazy. I when I saw this, I like did a double take. Apparently, so in terms of XG, they won the XG battle, but it was 0.97 to 0.67, so they barely won it. And on top of that, we had 2 big chances, and they only had 1. we missed both of our big chances, but so our goal wasn't, I guess.
That's
considered
weird
a
though,
big
because
chance.
they had one-on-one positions with Merto, so that doesn't seem.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Doesn't seem accurate to me.
I would agree. I'm guessing their one big chance because their goals were right. I certainly the Irfan Can Kaveci one was like from outside of the box, sort of, or like right. That might not be qualified as a big chance. So I would guess their one big chance, but it says they didn't miss the big chance. Although maybe because it was saved, it doesn't count. I mean,
Maybe the Batshuayi one. I'm not sure.
that's what I would be guessing. Yeah, that'd be because like the Faraday one was a miss, also wide. Granted, it was a great opportunity for them, but maybe it doesn't qualify as a big chance. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these stats are always sort of subjective and not very accurate in my honest opinion. But I still thought that was pretty wild. That I mean, and I think it speaks to what Kaan was saying, and you, Kartal, about their nerves kicking in, and at the end of the day, it wasn't a very inspiring performance from Fener, right? Like they barely squeaked by.
I think they were okay. I wouldn't knock them too much.
First half.
Yeah,
first half.
For sure.
They were much
Second
better.
half, but they're 1-0 up. You know how those types of game goes. One more thing I want to talk about as well is Musrati after the game obviously felt bad, felt horrible for letting his team down. He made a statement on Instagram, which is popped up on the screen right now. He apologized for letting his teammates down, for letting the team in general down, for letting the fans down, of course, and for me that looks pretty genuine. A player does it out of himself. Some people were already writing him off online, including Sinan Engin, I think, on Beyaz football.
Me?
No, not you.
Yeah, different Sinan.
Other Sinan, evil Sinan with the goatee. No, he doesn't actually have a goatee. He kind of has a beard, but I don't know what you guys thought of that. But for me, Musrati obviously. I think if we look at Musrati and Mucci, the two big signings in January, we spoke about this last week. I think you have a batch of apples. A batch of rotten apples. You add a couple of new apples, they're just gonna end up spoiling as well. If you look at these two, we spoke about last week. Mucci has been much more. He's played every game. He's been decisive a couple of times. Musrati, we're still kind of waiting on the return on the investment there. We do have to keep in mind he was injured for about 2 months before he came to us. Like a little bit before that, he had a knee injury, and then he played towards the end of 2023. But he wasn't 100% fit when he came, I think, and then he had the injury with us. Kartal, I'm gonna ask you first. What do you think of Musrati? What do you think of his performance in the game so far? And what are your hopes or fears for the future?
Well, I think in Al Musrati we've definitely got a player that offers a lot of quality. In terms of his passing game, I think maybe after Pjanic, he's the best kind of regista I've seen play for us in terms of his passing ability. Especially before that injury he had, we saw it a lot. Every game he'd give like maybe 2 or 3 key passes that would lead to chances. So I thought it was clear to see his quality in every game up until the injury.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, he was making mistakes in these games as well. Obviously, you have the infamous own goal in the second minute against Galatasaray. He had a misplaced pass against Antep as well, which led to their first goal in that game. He lost 2-0. That was the game he got injured in. So despite showing a lot of quality in those games prior to the injury, he also had these mistakes in him as well. And in the other games, he had mistakes as well, but obviously we're lucky enough we didn't get punished for them. But as well as showing that quality, he's shown that he is quite mistake prone. So I think it might have to do with the players around him not being suited to his playing style, and maybe they're not getting in the right positions to help him out when he's got the ball and he's getting pressed in these deep positions. Maybe he's not getting enough help. But I think he needs to iron out the mistakes out of his game. But one thing I'm going to say for sure is I don't think since this injury he's been 100%. You said it in the group chat, Kaan, where you said about 70%. I think it might even be low. Maybe he's between like 55, 60 because he looks slow as well. And in the last 2 games since he's came back from injury, or 3 games because he played a bit against Başakşehir as well after his injury, we've not been seeing those key passes that he was playing in the other games. And as well as that, he is just looking a step slow as well. So I don't think he's 100% fit just now. I think he's going to be a bust. I don't think so. But he really does need to work on ironing out these mistakes out of his game, making sure he's concentrating 100% all the time. And then if he does that, I think his quality's clear to see, especially in the games before he got injured.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I have to give him the benefit of the doubt, though, and I think it's worth noting. I think some of our more promising performances in the last few months, the only decent ones, have generally featured the three midfielders we want to see, right? In Gedson, Mucci, and Musrati. So, although we've definitely, and I'm not actually disagreeing with anything Kartal said, because he's absolutely right. He's clearly shown, I don't even think that's debatable. The mistakes he's made, especially in very key moments, have been decisive. But it's also worth noting he's also featured in some good performances as well, some of our better ones. So I think there's enough promise that with a full off season, with the club, training with the team, recovering from that injury, and hopefully with some better, some key additions to the lineup in the summer as well. I don't see how I think he'll be a key player. I honestly, I don't
fully agree.
Right, and I think a lot of the mistakes can be ironed out just by us playing better. Not always kind of being on edge. Always kind of expecting for our opponents to hit us back. I feel like there's a certain degree of tension and stress that's inherent in the whole unit currently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Going back to the mistakes, there's just a point I want to make. I don't know if you guys will. I'm sure you will remember, but when Masuaku first came, the guy was playing very well, but he was making these odd mistakes. There was maybe two games where he made mistakes that cost goals. One of them was the Trabzonspor game that we drew 2 each. But he was playing very well. So, but prior to the injury, I quite liking Al Musrati. I couldn't say his name there. I quite liking Al Musrati to how Masuaku was when he first came before the injury, where he's shown all this promise. He's shown great passing ability, but he is making the odd mistake. So if he can iron that out and get his fitness back, there's no reason why he can't be an iconic 6 for us that we'll all remember for years to come.
That's a pretty good tongue twister. Masuaku Al Musrati. Masuaku Al Musrati, right? That might be. That's a good one. We can anyway. I think I actually feel like we have a few key pieces that we can kind of look to going forward. Obviously Mucci's one. Al Musrati's one. Beyond that, Rashid says one. I think
Semi.
Of course, Semi. Oh my God, duh. Yeah, of course, Semi. Debatably, Jackson Muleka. Although I'd take if someone came in with a good. No. I would say he could be a good backup striker, though. I don't. Granted, if someone came in with some money, I would sell him. But
I think with Muleka, with 14 foreigners, I think. Yeah, that's fine. You can keep him as a sub-striker, but with the new 12 foreigner limit coming in, I don't think it'd be worthwhile keeping him around, to be honest.
Especially if we have Amir and Ox, who are more likely to stay, given their injury. It might be harder to offload them for anything. So, I don't know. That's going to be a whole other conversation. Is like which foreigners can we actually keep for the bench when that time comes? Because we're going to have some pretty serious decisions to make, right? Like, we're going to have to make quite a few cuts pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard. I think with the players leaving and players going back, we're still going to have 17 foreigners. So you need to cut that down to 12. And if you cut it down to 12, you still can't even make any transfers. So realistically, if we want to make the moves we need to cut that down to maybe 8 foreigners, 7 foreigners for us to be able to make the moves we want to make. So the board have actually got a very, very hard job, and I don't think enough people are actually taking that into consideration when they're making their plans for next year. We've probably got the hardest summer ever coming ahead. Mm-hmm. So if the board can actually turn this around and get rid of the dead weight and bring in the players we need, the quality players we need to make us contenders for next year, I think that'll be one of the biggest accomplishments that board's ever had in Besiktas history.
Yeah, and it's a hard task, isn't it? Kaan,
Yeah.
we haven't heard from you in a while. What do you think, Kaan? What's your response to that?
Yeah, I fully agree with that, and we have a couple of topics that go hand in hand with that as well. There's been rumors recently. I think we can move on from the game, right? There's been rumors about a new technical director or sporting director coming in from Bayer Leverkusen. Devin, what was his
Uzek?
Devin Uzek is his
Uzek.
name. Yeah, exactly. So there's been rumors about that that are starting to heat up. Your brother Özcan, he said that he was a Beşiktaş fan. Kartal, do you know anything about that?
I've not been able to, I've not checked it myself, so I can't say for sure. But Özcan won't just make that up, so
Yeah.
I'm sure he did see it somewhere. He's not a guy that's going to make stuff up. So
Very interesting
he definitely did see it
profile as
somewhere.
well, right? Because he's only 29 years old. He's currently in not quite a sporting director role at Leverkusen. He's more like an assistant to the coach or something like that. He's not a coach. He's more like, I don't know. I think he has something to do with. He's a scout previously. He started off his career as a scout. He played professional football at the lower leagues, but he got injured, I think, had to cut it short, and then he became a scout, and then he slowly started working his way up in the Bayer Leverkusen ranks. So they are talking about making this guy sporting director. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Yeah, with, like you said, a very difficult task ahead of us in the summer. Do you guys trust the people currently in the decision-making positions? A couple of weeks ago, they made the announcement that the board was organizing a committee that existed out of Hüseyin Yücel and what's Sinan Vardar's son called? Mete Vardar. And then and then a couple of other guys from the board, and Feyyaz Uçar, of course, and I think also, not sure if Samet Aybaba is included in that whole transfer committee.
He's not in it.
Oh, okay.
He's not in it.
So do you think that we should look more towards a sporting director or that committee?
Sinan, you go first, bro.
Okay. I feel like that is the approach that most of the successful clubs in Europe are taking these days. So I can't see why we shouldn't follow that formula. As far as his profile, I've spoken at length about the need for us to really seriously interview folks and like really get a sense of what their plan is, what realistically they think we can achieve, and like how long it will take for their vision to sort of manifest or whatever it is. And so it's really key that like they say the right things and they lay out the right process. But I mean, his CV, right? His resume sounds pretty good. I will say, and you didn't mention this, Kaan, he's already been linked with 2 Italian managers, if I'm not incorrect.
One of them. So what it is, the news is that he's supposedly suggested 2 Italian coaches to the board. That's what the news was.
And what's the main dude's name? I mean, I know his last name is like Italiano, which is it's like a FIFA regen or something, but like Vincenzo Italiano or something.
So no name's actually been mentioned as of yet, but that was just a guess. I made an educated guess because I know that Vincenzo Italiano he is leaving Fiorentina at the end of the season, so he is going to be available with the success he's had in Fiorentina over the last 3 years or so. I think he would be a suitable candidate for us. So I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, and I actually put that name out there. It wasn't one that I saw from any news outlet. It's just a name that I think makes sense and will be available in the summer.
Too. Right? Haven't we been linked with Sarri as well?
Yeah, it could be Sarri. Yeah, that's another option. So yeah, it could be Maurizio Sarri as well. But getting back to the point about Kaan asking, does he think that if we need a director of football? I think we do. Kaan said that, do we trust the people to make the decisions? I think in terms of like the financial decisions, I do trust the people on the board, but in terms of actual footballing decisions, I don't think I trust them that much. And I think a professional like Devin Uzek, who's got experience working at a very successful club, and look at Bayer Leverkusen over the last 2-3 years they've transformed their club. This year they've won the Bundesliga undefeated, ended the 11-year stretch of Bayern Munich dominance. So I think in terms of the profile, this guy's ideal. We don't really know how much he was involved in the recruitment, but we'd like to assume that he was highly involved, considering his role as like an assistant to the director of football. And clearly, I think a lot of people that come through that German school of football, they know their stuff, especially if they've came through Leverkusen that have been highly successful. So I think this would be a very good move for us to bring in Devry Nuzik as the director of football. I think for once that we'll actually see a planned strategical approach to our transfers, players that we actually need and will suit the system we're wanting to play, rather than just signing random guys that we think are going to be good. So I think it's a great idea. As to why I don't trust the people to make the decisions on the board, I mean, is this board that just brought Santos in January, and as we discussed in the last episode, or not, maybe 2 episodes prior to this, the Santos decision, it felt like that was just made because he's a big name coach that's won trophies, not because his style of football suits what we want to play. Because in reality, the style of football that Santos is known to play is the polar opposite as to what we want as Besiktas fans. So I think having a professional like Devry Nuzik there that knows football, knows the type of football that we want to play, I think he'll be the guy that they'll be able to make a smart decision as to who to bring in as a coach, and also what players we need to bring in to achieve what we want to.
I want to say one thing in regards to your last comment, and I want to sort of put it on the floor for both of you guys. I've heard a lot of criticism of Hassan Arat and the current board, and saying how somehow some of this season is their fault. Right? There was a whole, I think, controversy on Twitter this week. I would be willing to bet that a huge part of the Santos hire was there weren't a ton of options, right? Like, it was a sort of dead-end job at that point. We were in a terrible position. Like, we're not in great financial standing, so they knew we're not going to be able to bring in all that we need to actually start looking good immediately. And so the prospects for success were limited, right? So I think realistically they couldn't be looking for their ideal candidate, because their ideal candidate should not have been interested in the job, right? Like, it's not a smart gig to take on at that point. So I guess I've already, in framing it like that, I think I've already posited my viewpoint. Like that, it's pretty clear I don't blame Hassan Arat or the board, but I wonder what you guys think, if they shoulder any responsibility for failures so far.
And then I'll
Kaan, go ahead.
comment.
Well, I mean, I think it's very harsh to put the blame on them. Really, this team was built for 90% or 95%. Well, 90. Let's call it 90%, because they did add Mucci, did add Al Musrati, and they did add Svensson. So this team was built for 90% by the previous board, by Şenol Güneş, by those people, by Ceyhun Kazancı, Şenol Güneş, Ahmet Nuh Çebi, Emre Kocada. Those people built this team over the last couple of years, mainly the board and Ceyhun, of course. Of course, the appointment of Santos was a bad decision, and they 100% deserve to get criticized for that. I think the signings they made in January were good. Mucci has been a good signing. I think put a good team around him, and he's going to be amazing. Al Musrati, jury's still out on him, but obviously, there's the situation with his injury and all that kind of stuff. I think Al Musrati, we can see he has a lot of quality. I just think that, when you play at 70% or 80% or whatever it is he's playing at, you are going to be slow, and you're going to... Like, for example, the red card is a perfect example of him being a little bit sluggish, I think. I think if he's 100%, he probably doesn't make that foul. He probably doesn't hit Fred above his ankle. Like Sinan pointed out, it's the first red card he's received in 4 years' time. They have VAR in Portugal, so I think it's just a result of his current physical condition, which isn't perfect. And then there's Svensson. I think Svensson's been a fine transfer. Obviously, people are angry because he came instead of Rosier, and Rosier is one of the all-time great right backs that have played for Beşiktaş. But of course, there's also certain circumstances surrounding that with Rosier's behavior behind the scenes that is being pushed forward as the reason for him being removed from the premises, so to speak. So then in that regard, I think when you need to make a quick transfer, because they recognized that we couldn't continue playing with Onur Bulut as our right back for the remainder of the season, so they brought in somebody from the league who knows the league, who's played at a very high level in his career consistently in the Netherlands. He was one of the best fullbacks in the Netherlands for many years in the Eredivisie, and then he came to Adana Demirspor, a club I think he would usually speaking never go to. But that's just because Adana Demirspor have been throwing around a lot of money. But in Turkey then the perception is, oh, this is just a player from Adana Demirspor. No, this isn't just a player from Adana Demirspor. This is a player that would, under normal circumstances, never play for a club of that status. If he'd come to Turkey, normally he'd go to Trabzonspor, he'd go to Başakşehir, he'd go to Beşiktaş, maybe Galatasaray, maybe Fenerbahçe. Like, he is that good. He's good. He's a good player. Of course, he's 31 years old, and I think that's the biggest knock on him, is that he's older than Rosier. But for a short-term fix, I think Svensson is a good transfer. He didn't cost us anything. He's transfer free. His wages are relatively low, and he's a good player. So they brought in 3 players, 2 of which are record signings. One is doing good, the other one still has to find his footing, and then Svensson. So in terms of transfers, I think they did an okay job. The coaching decision was terrible, but to put everything on them and to act like the team has gone downhill since they came in, no, the team's been terrible for months, and they have just been unable to make it better. But if you remember, before Mucci and Musrati came, the team was worse even, I would argue, because we were in a period where we were so bad, and we were still really bad. But I think we improved slightly, not a lot, but yeah, the big rebuild is going to be this summer, like we've said already. And yeah, I don't think you can blame the board too much. I think they have about 10% blame right now, I think. And you can criticize them for that, and you should. But to act as if we need to go to new elections, I've seen somebody write that. That's bonkers. I don't know what you think about it, Kartal, but I think it's ridiculous.
No, I fully agree with everything you just said there, Kaan. I think the transfers, like Worrell, that was just a loan to basically like make up the numbers. So I don't think you can criticise that too much.
And he's been pretty decent.
He's been good.
We don't really talk about that.
He's a decent defender. Maybe not the best with the ball at his feet, but he's a decent defender. Svensson, maybe a downgrade on Rosier, but he's shown that he's a decent player. Mucci and Musrati have got plenty of quality. Obviously, the big mistake.
You're not going to bring in a Victor Ruiz level ball playing central defender in January when you're in our position.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. But the big mistake was obviously the Santos hiring, and I think they do deserve a lot of criticism for that, because I think if you can't find the coach that you need, you don't just bring a guy because he's a big name. Even if his football is a complete opposite as to what you want to play, you don't do that. You just put out a statement and say, look, the coaches that we wanted, we couldn't agree with them, or because they acted as if they had it all planned out and everything was ready, they could say, oh, the person we agreed with before has changed their mind. Obviously, because without a contract, it's never actually done, but they've changed their mind. We're really sorry. We're just going to continue with Serdar Toprak until the end of the season, and then we'll bring in our coach at the end of the season. That's probably what should have been done instead of bringing in Santos. So they do have a bit of blame for that, as you said, like 10% maybe, but it's really Ahmed Nurchebi and his board are 90% responsible for this position we're in, for an absolutely catastrophic summer they made us go through last summer, signing a bunch of duds, bunch of injury-prone players. They're way past their best. Even guys like Ox, who has clear quality and is a good player, is inconsistent and had a big layoff. The rest of them have been terrible, to be honest. Apart from Bakhtiar, they've been terrible. So it's 90% on Amit Nursevi. A small 10% of the blame could maybe go to Hassan Arat and his board for the poor managerial selection, but other than that, it's 90% on Amit Nursevi, and
I guess Rasichka
the real test starts in the summer.
Rasichka has been okay as well, I guess.
Sorry, I forgot about Rashika. I do like Rashika.
No.
I forgot about him. I like him as well, but even him, I don't think he's excellent. He's decent. He's probably going to be he's a good player on a good team.
And injury
I do like him.
I have the impression, because I think he's been coming off early in the last couple of games, because I think he's not 100% fit either. Because that's the only explanation I could have for him coming off early, because he came off early in the last game and then in the Fenerbahçe game. And I really think and he came off at half-time against Fenerbahçe. So the only thing I can think of is he has some sort of injury. Because otherwise, he's one of the most energetic players on the field. You'd imagine he'd leave him on, right?
Yeah. I mean, that makes plenty of sense, but at the same time, it would be pure speculation on our part to believe that, because we've not heard anything from the club saying that he's injured. So who knows? That could be the case. It's definitely a plausible and good theory, because the substitutions at the Fenerbahçe game, they weren't very good anyway, to be honest. Like, that taking Rashika off was questionable at best. Like, I think he should have been left on. You could have taken off Najib for Gezal and put Rashika right back, or you could have taken Muleka and put Rashika on the left and Gezal on the right. I think both of them would have been better solutions to what he done. So for you saying that you think he might be injured, that'd be a plausible reason, and it makes a lot of sense. But
only logical explanation I can really think of.
Yeah,
I have a maybe two, but definitely one rebuttal as far as. I mean, I agree that we probably should have kept Serdar Topraktepe and just run with that, just chalk this season up as an L and moved on. But just given our toxic fan base, you can imagine how the fans would have responded to that decision, right?
Well, then they should have gone Sergen or something, but not...
Well, and that's the other conversation. But I just mean as far as just not making that decision at all and like putting it off for 6 months. Although it may have been the right call, I just don't see our fan base tolerating that for the time being, which is not, again, it's not a good. We shouldn't capitulate to these morons, frankly, but here we are. And secondly, I can imagine, because Santos often said the right thing and then like didn't follow through. So I can totally imagine him saying like, I know you think I'm going to play this type of football, but trust me, I have, I could see him saying the right thing and then not really following through.
100%.
It's only, like potential defense for the board at the moment. As far as the Santos decision. Although I think we can all agree in hindsight that was clearly the wrong. Yeah, that did not go well.
Not at all.
Yeah, very true.
But what's next up, Kaan? Because I think as far as Serdar, didn't he have some comments that we wanted to talk about too? Because I think they lined up with what Kartal was just saying.
Yeah, we can talk about the comments, the post-match comments. I'll bring them up here on the screen, covering Kartal's head. But you can see,
right.
You can see the comments here. I'll enlarge them. But so that's so. I mean,
here, let me read it out loud for the audio listeners. Right, the red card was a red card. I spoke to Semi before the game. He told me he wanted to play on the wing. I told him during the game that he could switch positions with Muleka. He said no, so I didn't switch their position. At the end of the game, Jedson made a challenge on the goalkeeper, and the ref gave a foul. He won the ball, he being Jedson. We fought well in the duels, but the ref gave all the great decisions in favor of Fenerbahçe. The red card slowed down our tempo. All the players showed great character today. The positions we created were because of the character they showed, and I'd like to thank my players. Which, my last comment on that is those are pretty reasonable comments for the most part. The first one about Muleka is probably slightly more debatable, but the latter two, I think it's hard to disagree with.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think I don't blame Serdar either. I mean, I don't know what you guys spoke about it at the top of the hour, what we thought of the lineups. And I think the lineup is kind of what he was forced to go with. He didn't have Svensson because of suspension. He didn't have Onur because probably not 100% fit. He was on the bench, but I assume he wasn't 100% fit, just coming back off of injury. So then he's kind of being pushed in a situation where he needs to either play Tayyip Talha, who doesn't have the much match fitness, much rhythm, or he has to play Necip. And he opted for Necip. And look, I think even if we were having a decent season or a good season even, if you are forced to play with somebody like Necip on the right back, and with all due respect for Necip, of course, but you know, if you go from your standard fullback, Rosier, Svensson, Adriano, Andreas Beck, Gökhan Gönül, I don't care who, one of those guys.
Even Masuaku, right?
Yeah, Masuaku, like name those guys, and then they're suspended, they're injured, whatever, and then you have to play Necip there. That's always going to have an adverse impact on your game plan, on your capability of executing certain plays. We saw a couple of moments where Necip did overlap and did get a crossing position, get in a crossing position, and obviously Necip is not. That's not his thing. That's not what he's good at. I have seen him cross the ball well in the past. I've seen him done some amazing cross passes. But generally speaking, that is not one of his strengths, and that is something to be noticed here. So even under different circumstances where we would have been up to the challenge with the rest of our team, if you then have to put Necip on right back, that's always going to be deflating in a derby game. That's a massive drop in quality in a very key area of the pitch, because in modern football, fullbacks are extremely important in particular in attacking aspects of the game. If you then play with somebody like Necip or even Onur, we've seen this throughout the season, like when your fullbacks are impotent, so much of your potential attacking goes out of the window. And yeah, you know, I think that's one of those things here as well, where Serdar didn't have much choices. He could have gone for Tayyip Talha, but I mean, Tayyip Talha is the same situation, right? You're playing a central defender at fullback. And
just to highlight what you're saying real briefly, it's probably worth noting that we basically won a title because of an interchange between a fullback and a winger under Sergen, right? Like that Rosier-Ghezal interchange was, I think you could say, pivotal to an entire championship run. So certainly, it's hard to disagree with what you're saying as far as the importance of a fullback.
I mean, when you're talking about the importance of fullbacks, Pep Linders, I know I've said that wrong, Can forgive me, please.
Pep Linders, yeah, that's fine. I
see, Liverpool's system is very reliant on the fullbacks. Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold, they're the guys that are pivotal to actually creating the play for them. So that's a coach that we are looking as to bring as our coach, Klopp's assistant. So say he is our coach, it's going to be pivotal that we have two fullbacks that are capable of doing that, switching with the wingers, doing the runs in behind, down to the bottom line, crossing the ball.
Yeah,
it's pivotal.
100%. It doesn't even matter if it's somebody like that. It doesn't matter who you bring in. Your fullbacks need to be quality players. And look at Galatasaray right now, for example. Like, their fullbacks are not the best, probably. Derek Köhn and Kaan Ayhan. Offensively, especially Kai Ayhan, that's not his biggest strength. But defensively, he is extremely solid. And Derek Köhn, I think, is a good player. Better than Onur Bulut for sure. Better than Necip for sure. Is he better than Masuaku and Svensson? I don't think he's better than Svensson. I think Masuaku, when he feels like it, is amazing. But Masuaku switches off a lot during games.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest issues with Masuaku, and one of the reasons that I'm not quite sure whether we should continue with Masuaku next season. He has one more year left on his contract. I know, like for example, Evran's a big fan of Masuaku. I think we all are fans of Masuaku because when he feels like it, he's one of the best fullbacks in the league without a doubt. But I expect more from him in these types of games. He needs to be a leader. He needs to step up. I know that's a tall order given the season and given the state of the team. But I expect more from Masuaku. And for next season, I think, Masuaku, Svensson, can you go into the season with those guys as your main fullbacks? I think you can. But I would hope that... I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if I'm comfortable with doing that. Also, Masuaku has been very injury prone this season. Svensson, in large part, throughout his career has been pretty injury free, and of course he had a recent injury, but now this game was due to suspension, so and plus that was cards as well that he had already accumulated at Adana Demirspor, so you have to think this is his first yellow card suspension all season, so we're 30 odd games into the season. That's not the worst thing in the world that you have a guy missing a game then, right? So, but still, we need the proper backups, even if we aren't going to bring in mainstays, and because Onur can't do it. And at left back, who is our left back backup right now? Serkan Emrecan Terzi, I guess.
Yeah.
Umut Merash is leaving. I'm quite sure. So that's a position I think we need to look at. Tayyip Talha, right? But other than that, Serdar, yes, I think Serdar's comments are pretty spot on. I fully agree with what he said about the referee. In terms of Muleka, Muleka has energy. He can run for days. I get why he is going with that. His comments about Simi. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you're the coach. You should do what you think is the right move. You can ask the player's opinion, and you can, but you don't necessarily have to stick to that. I think in the second half, ideally, I would have liked to see, like you said, Kartal, Gezal come on, but I would have liked to see, if Rasicka is fit, I would have liked him to stay on as well. We could have even moved him in midfield. We've seen that under Santos, where Rasicka played in midfield. Because obviously due to the red card, but that red card of course reshuffles everything, and it's a difficult situation for Serdar, and it's the 7th game in a row where we've seen a red card, or at least the last 7 games in Kadıköy we've seen 7 red cards. I mean, this one was correct. Let's be honest. This one was correct.
Definitely.
We had one a couple of years ago where Larin got sent off, where it's like, is that a red card? Come on.
That was bullshit.
That's one of the worst. That stays in my mind all the time because I've seen so many plays since then where there's some minimal contact, some clearly incidental sort of arm contact that's never called. It's certainly never red, and I don't think I've seen a single red card assessed for that since. So that specific play is like scarred into my memory. I hated that call so much.
We've got a couple of red cards over the years in Kadıköy that I think were never red cards. We also have the one with Joseph where he probably should have been sent off right at the end with a hard tackle.
Although right before that though, they fouled us. So if the ref gave the right call there, Joseph would have had to made that foul, and he would actually get sent off. So that cancels that out. You could argue. So you could argue he deserved to stay on if the ref gave the foul by them on us before that.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. But that's a long time ago, of course, that game. But I'm sure people who are watching, listening will remember that. There was 100% a fall right before it, and I think it's one of those games. Back then was one of those games where the referee allows it to escalate. I was surprised in this game as well by just the way the referee officiated, because he came with his yellow cards really quickly. Was it the Galatasaray match or something where I think it took like 80 something minutes before he pulled out a yellow, the ref. Obviously a different referee, but like usually in these derbies I kind of have the feeling that they are like, okay, I'm not gonna pull too many yellow cards too quickly, which I think it's okay if the fouls aren't egregious. I don't think our fouls were egregious though. I don't think Najib did anything in the beginning where that, like I saw more egregious fouls later in the game by Fenerbahçe that didn't get cards. Like I was talking about earlier, the short that we posted on the Black Eagles YouTube channel, the fall on Mucci. That's like that doesn't get a card, and then So I think Serdar is right that the referee definitely had chosen a side, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
The only thing I wanted to say about the comment Serdar made about Semi, I don't think he should be, like as you said, you can take the player's opinion into account. But if you think that putting Semi up front is going to change something in the game, they could potentially turn the tide into our favour. You make that change. You just say, look, Semi, you swap with Maleka. You're playing up front in the second half. You make that change. If that's what you believe is going to change the game, I think, as you said, you can listen to the player's opinion, but if you believe something's going to make a positive difference, you do it. You don't listen to the player.
And also, I mean, I do have to point out, I don't think that would have been the right decision, because I think Semi was one of very few players that had a really good game on our side. Osai Samuel had a very hard time containing him, and I think that's a big credit to Semi, because Osai is built like a tank, and he's quick as hell, and he really struggled with Semi. Semi continued repeatedly beat him one-on-one with a very tricky dribbling around him, and then it would require Osai to make a last grasp challenge, sliding tackle or whatever, to put it into corner or whatever. And Simi was really one of the few guys that was consistently causing issues. And I think also that was due to the fact that Fenerbahçe didn't double down on him. Because I don't know if you remember, but against Galatasaray, he always had Kaan Ayhan on him, but then also had, first of all, Kaan Ayhan was sticking to him like glue. And then they had, I don't know if it was Kerem Demirbay or somebody else from joining from midfield to also contain Semi. So they always had like two guys on him. Fenerbahçe didn't do that. Fenerbahçe just played one-on-one. And I think then if you do that, you can see what Semi's capable of. And Semi was, I think, the player they struggled with most, other than Mucci. But Mucci, Mucci, this is Mucci, right? Like, he's very hard to contain, but at the same time, he takes so much risk. He loses the ball a lot. And he had a lot of possession losses in this game as well. But then as well, I also think that the whole position with Szymanski does illustrate why Mucci is a quality player. But Mucci still has some things to improve. Main part of that is ball retention, I guess. But I don't think Muleka on the wing would have been better than Simi, but
one thing you could have done is take Muleka off, bring on Gazal, put Gazal on the right, put Rashika on the left, and have Semi down the middle. That could have potentially made us better. Because I think Rashika is better on the left wing, and then you've got Gazal on the right to create as well. And when Gazal's, as much as Gazal isn't his former self, he's really the only purebred creator we have on this team.
I'm not sure if I agree completely, because I do think Mucci has a very good vision and picks out some incredible passes, and I do think he has it in him to be a good creator as well. Although he isn't, I know what you mean. Like, Gazal is naturally a creator. I think Mucci, obviously he's somebody that's growing into that role. Somebody that came, initially played as a striker. I believe when he was playing in Albania, and played a bunch of games as a striker as well for his team in Poland. I want to say Lech Poznan, but I know it's not Lech Poznan. It's Legia Warsaw. Legia Warsaw. So I get what you mean, but I do think that Mucci has that in him. But we do definitely need a creative playmaker on the wing next season to replace Gazal. Because that's, if you think about it, we've been playing with a winger playmaker for the last 7 years or something like that, right? We went from Quaresma to Gazal, essentially.
Yeah.
Quaresma.
But if you don't count the year in between where Quaresma was gone and before Gazelle came.
Yeah,
that's
that was
right.
a horrible season.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, we ended third, better than this season, but no, it wasn't great.
Yeah,
It's a shame how poorly the Rebic thing flopped. That was a huge bust that I think could have resolved some of these issues as far as lacking
especially
activity on the
you can
wings.
See
right?
his quality though, like he has played very limited amount of minutes, but like every time he played, he did show something. But it was just, somebody told me on Twitter once that he has a chronic back injury.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard that as well.
Yeah, and he also had surgery on his back now, I believe, because he's out for the season. So yeah, maybe that's true. Do you guys want to?
I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Kartal.
On you go, Ken. Okay, I'll go. About Rebic, obviously you two know this because we're friends. We talk every day, but the listeners won't know. I was dead against Rebic coming in the first place, just because of his history with injuries. I was very in favour of Brian, another player we were linked with, Mohamed El Younousi, who's had a decent season with Copenhagen. Scored some goals in the Champions League, scored a decent amount of goals in the league, got a few assists as well.
Didn't he break Galatasaray's hearts this year? Didn't he?
He scored the first goal in the 2-each game, and the Alizé. He scored the first goal in the game that ended 2-each. I was in favour of him coming because he had more seasons.
I think we lost Kartal's feed.
Yeah,
I'm back.
Oh,
you're back. There you go.
Yeah.
You were saying
El Younousi had more good seasons in his career than Rebic, and a much smaller injury history as well. There was only one season. It was his first year at Celtic where he had a bit of an injury problem, but other than that, he stayed relatively injury-free his whole career. So I was a much bigger proponent of bringing him in. And from what's happened with his success at Copenhagen, Revic's been a complete flop with us always injured. Reports of really him not being bothered at all in training, not trying. Despite obviously he does have clear quality, in the limited minutes he showed just kind of flashes and glimpses of that quality he does have, but it wasn't often enough, and he did often cast a disinterested figure on the field when he's playing. So I mean, it's not even a matter of hindsight for myself. I was dead against it from the start, and unfortunately, on this occasion, I was right. I wish I was wrong. I wish he was.
I wish you were wrong.
I wish
too.
he turned out to be a great player. But,
I mean,
unfortunately, I was right.
I agree with you, man. I was also in favor of El Younousi because as a player, I like as well. Had a good period at Celtic, then did okay in the Premier League, not great. I think it was for Sunderland or Southampton, I forget.
Southampton.
Yeah.
Southampton.
So he was okay-ish there. I think he was kind of roughly, what we needed. He was a free agent. We didn't spend a lot of money on Rebic, but in terms of wages, I think El Younousi probably would have been a little bit cheaper. He was. I think he's like a year younger. Like you said, legitimate argument for less injuries in his career. And I think that was a big thing in the summer when we were looking at every player we were linked to. It was like they had like a wash list of injuries in their history. And it's like you're trying to put a chronic team together. Like you can't put players that have that much injury history in every single position. You're going to end up in a situation like we were in 2021 where half the team was injured. And I mean, we've been a little unfortunate this season with Amir getting a bad injury, and then Ox, Ox was fine until he did his hamstring. But also with Ox, you knew going in there's a big risk of re-injury there. He has a long injury history. And that's also why he came to us and didn't go to another Premier League team, because other Premier League teams didn't want to take the risk because they all thought, too much of an injury history there. And that's something we need to look. Like, it's the first thing I do now. When we are linked with a player, the first thing I do is check their injury history. It's become like, it's kind of silly. I don't know if Fenerbahçe and Galatasaray fans do that. I highly doubt it. But yeah.
They're not scarred the way we are.
They certainly are not. Yeah. But yeah, the Rebic thing, I mean, obviously if Rebic had worked out, I think you have a different season, right? Because then...
Yeah, absolutely.
Like one quality winger producing for you and contributing would have made a big difference this season. Look at Trabzonspor this season. They are not very good, but they have Trezeguet that's been scoring goals lately. They have Edin Visca back from his long injury and doing well again. Like, those two are making the difference for them quite often, and that's also why I think they're currently in a better position than we are. Although I do think for next season we have more potential as a team to grow and build, because we saw the transfers that Trabzonspor, they just signed 2 players from Rangers, and that's not necessarily the level. I think you're not going to compete with Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe if you bring in players of that level, I think.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, Barisic is a player that Rangers have been wanting to get rid of for about 3 years. Well, maybe not the club, but the fans have wanted rid of him for 3 years. Lundstrom was pivotal in the Europa League campaign 2 years ago, but the last year or so he's had a lot of criticism as well. So, not great signings on paper for Trabzon.
They're both like I think Lundstrom's like 31, and I think Barisic is 29 or 30 or something. So it's not like
I think it's the other way around.
Also, and I think it's probably worth noting that our 2 biggest profile signings, it's maybe not as far as the impact we expected, but Rebic is one who we talked about, but there's also Eric Bailly, who was also a colossal flop with also a huge track record of injury. And that's 2 positions, right? Like a central defender and a winger, which are 2 of our greatest needs, right? Like Ox too, but like specifically because like if you go into next summer, right? This coming summer rather, not next. It's like it already feels like summer here in New York, but going into the summer, right, we need creativity, which is either going to be a striker or a winger, depending on wherever they class Semi Kilic, and then we need a central defender. Those are like the 2 biggest needs we have. And again, Bailly and Rebic, right? Like that's the price of making mistakes at that level, right? You go into the next summer having to redo the whole thing, right? It was like a lost year for us.
For sure. I mean, look. Bailly is gone already. Onana is loaned out. Rebic has played only cameos this season, is out for the season, but like his role in the season has been really good. That's like 3 big signings already. We paid 4 million for Onana. We didn't pay a lot for Bailly because he was free, but he had a pretty decent contract. And then
hefty salary,
we have Rebic. We didn't pay a lot for him, only 500k, but he's on 2.5 million a year. Those were like 2 of them, Bailly and Rebic, like you point out, were supposed to be marquee signings. Onana was more a signing for squad depth, but also, we expected more from him. We didn't see much of him, to be fair. But like, I think it's telling the fact that 2 of those guys are gone already. Like, if you look at our team right now, that's playing every week. Like, how many new signings are in there that haven't been made by the new board? Like
just Rashica.
Just Rashica.
Yeah, it's just Rashica.
From this summer, only Rashica. And of course, we can go further back, but like, only Rashica. And I don't know how many transfers we did this summer, but we did enough. The fact that only one player is playing regularly.
No, that's a colossal failure. That's a colossal failure. You can't come back from that.
It is a massive failure. Yeah. Okay, let's close that chapter off. I think I'm shooting for like roughly 90 minutes in this show, so we still have like roughly half an hour. Let's talk a little bit about next season. Let's talk about the coaching situation. We still have to talk about that. Let's talk about... We can still talk about the Rize game as well. Sorry, I forgot about that. We should probably talk about that too, because I did say at the beginning we have dropped out of the top 4 now, which is detrimental. We have the Rizespor game coming up, which is going to be essential. We play it at home. We have the home field advantage, which is good. But, of course, Rize is playing good football this season. They're only 2 points behind us. If we don't win or if they beat us, we're in a really bad situation then. We're only 1 point behind Başakşehir, but 5 games to go. They still have to drop points for us to overtake them, and we can't drop points. I think most of our difficult games are out of the way. On paper, we still have to play Kasımpaşa, I know that. We play Rizespor. So those are teams that are in direct competition with us right now for the 4th place. So let's talk about the Rizespor game first. İlhan Palut in charge. What do you guys expect? Sinan, I'll start with you.
What do I expect? I expect a tough match. Both sides have everything to play for now. İlhan Palut is a guy who I think has everything to coach for, not just as far as results for his current team, but you'd think he might want to earn a spot on our radar for the coaching roulette that we're currently involved in. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine he'd want the best performance he could get out of his squad. I don't know. There's like, who's going to be missing? I feel at least the good news is I think we've sort of got a bunch of suspensions out of the way and stuff. Yeah. But obviously, Musrati is out. Who plays in his stead? I guess, is it Amarte? Do we see Ox? Does he try to fit Oxlade-Chamberlain in and somehow maybe play Jedson at the 6?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm quite curious to see how he sets us up now. Yeah. But I expect a very difficult encounter. And on that note, real quickly, I'm going to get a refill of water. So, Kartal, take it away.
What
I think
they're going to do, Kartal?
Right, so I think for this upcoming game, the logical lineup would be Merton goals, Svensson right back. He'll be back from his yellow card suspension.
Yeah.
I don't think Serdar Topraktepe is going to do this, but me personally, I'd have Bakhtiar and Worrell as my centre backs. I'd bench on Macaulay. Left back, I'd have Masuaku. In the midfield, I'd go for Sari. Yeah, in fact, no, I could go for Ox, Jedson, and Mucci.
Mm-hmm.
And then up front we'd have Semi, on the left Rashika, and on the right Rashid Ghazal. That would be my starting 11.
Yeah.
But I don't think Serdar Topraktepe is going to do that. I think he'll start with Omar Colley.
Maybe.
With Worrell at centre back, because so far we've not. Since he's came back in the 3 games, we've not seen Bakhtiar start. Mm-hmm. But I think he's been injured, in fact. Is that right?
Yeah,
Bakhtiar's injured, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
That's right. So I made a mistake there. So I think if Bakhtiar's injured, I'd start with Worrell and Tai at centre back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd largely go with the same lineup. I would definitely go with that midfield: Ox, Jedson, Mucci, and put Jedson put Jedson on the 6, Ox on the 8, give Mucci that 10 role. That's what I would go for. I think the only change he really needs to make, other than Svensson at right back, is Ox in for Musrati and let Gedson do the dirty work, which he's best at. Yeah. Other than that, Rasička on the left. I would start with Ghazal on the right, Semi up top. For me, centrally, I think, either Worrell and Necip I would go with, probably, or Worrell and Tayyip. That doesn't really matter, but you have Mert, you have Semi, and then you need one more Turk, so it either needs to be Necip or Tayyip.
Bakhtiar's injured.
Yeah.
Oh, I said that as well, but he's injured.
Is he still injured? I'm not sure if he's still injured, but that's definitely the lineup I'd go for. What's your predictions for the game, Sinan? Do you want to give your lineup first, maybe?
I liked your lineup, actually. That sounded pretty ideal to me, although I still like Semi on the wing. And I had a thought. Maybe Serdar Topraktepe is playing more Jackson Muleka up top because he wants to up his values, knowing that we likely have to sell him this summer. So there's probably some logic in trying to squeeze some good performances out of him.
I think he won't start with Muleka, actually, now you mention it, because he seems very fond of him.
And it could be strategy in that sense. They're trying to up his value because we need to get rid of him. Because obviously, even if I'm actually kind of a Muleka fan, but he's not like the solution as far as our striker next season. And given the foreigner limit, we likely are going to have a Turk as our bench option anyway. So it makes sense that we'd need to kind of offload him. And, I think, didn't we already have some offers for him theoretically that like we rejected that were for like...
Supposedly were like loan offers and stuff.
3 million.
Yeah.
There was an offer for 3 million last summer as well. From one of the teams in the Sandbox.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's what I recalled. And so, if he was already on certain clubs' radars, you'd imagine he's probably done enough. He's got a decent enough highlight reel that he could, probably maybe go for 4 or 5 million now. Ideally, who knows, right? But either way, I can see the logic in him starting up top with Semi on the wing and Rashica obviously opposite him. Mucci, I'd like to maybe see the Mucci Ox Jedson, right? That could be fun. And it seems like we're trying to work Ox back into the lineup. Yeah. Again, it could be the same logic. Maybe we try to play him as much as possible with the hopes of being able to call in a suitor in the summer, right? Who might,
Question
I don't
is
know
if
how
he's
much
ready
money
to play 90 minutes or if he's ready to play start at least, That's
Which, right? Like, this is our chance. We have like 4 or 5 matches, right? To give him that kind of opportunity. So I think there could be some logic to that. As far as the fullbacks, I'd like to see Svensson and Masuaku. I personally, like, my dream central back pairing would be Tayyip on the right and Batiar on the left, because same thing, right? They're both relatively young, or young enough that their value could be boosted. They could be inserted and establish themselves as long-term.
Yeah, Tayyip just extended his contract.
Yeah, that's that's actually a great segue to some news. Yeah, but so I'd still love to see them like given some consistent playing time in that role together. Didn't they have a couple decent matches in that like one stretch where Santos where we posted a few maybe partially lucky clean sheets, but where we thought we might have been establishing a defensive identity.
Yeah.
Right?
They played together against Rize. While Sardar was in charge, and then they also played together against Fatih Karagümrük in the 3-0 win. So the 4-0 win against Rize, 3-0 win against Fatih Karagümrük. But then also they played together in the 4-0 loss against Pendikspor.
Yeah, that was where everything fell apart. Yeah. That's when Tayyip got like cut, right? Like we hadn't seen him for a while since.
Yeah, Tayyip got completely cut after that by Fernando Santos.
I wonder if that was actually a cut, or if there was like he was feeling pain, or he was, or because they have these predictive methods of of predicting injury risk and stuff like that. Maybe there was some data that was showing that there was a high risk at re-injury or something, because he was completely taken out of it. And I would have expected if it wasn't something along those lines, I would have expected Serra to put him back in straight away. And he did.
Allegedly.
Go ahead.
Santos did say that he does have fitness issues, that he's not back to 100%. So as to what you're saying there, that is the case. Santos did go on record to say that he's not 100% 2 or 3 times. So what you were saying there, that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaan, you and I have talked about this on air on a number of occasions, in our years of doing this podcast. But I think one of the hardest hurdles to overcome when you're coming back from a long-term injury is the psychological, right? The mental aspect of fully being able to go into tackles without fear of re-injury, without just that like image of that one tackle that went wrong that sidelined you for 11 months or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a lot of logic to his recovery being delayed and maybe having a little setback here or there, whatever it was. But I mean, he looked great as a left back the other day. I don't know if that...
I thought it was fine, but I think Tayyip is a quality player, right? Like I think we all really like Tayyip. I'm really happy to see that he got a contract extension now. I think that does show that the club wants to go forward with him, and I really hope that next season he'll play a bigger role. It was last season against Fenerbahçe where he got injured, if you remember. So it's almost like a year ago to the day, because we played them roughly around this time in the season, I think, as well. So it was against Fenerbahçe where he got injured, and it was in a challenge, I believe, as well. So although I didn't get the impression from Taib that he was holding back. But yeah, I could definitely see that there might be some concerns with his, not fitness, but just him, coming back too soon, perhaps. And that's one of the dangers of coming back from an injury like that. You don't want to come back too soon, because we saw that with Mustafa Pekdemek in the past. Came back too soon, immediately tore his ACL again. I think Ersan Gülüm had something similar as well. He had also back-to-back ACL injuries, I want to say.
He did, that's right.
So, you don't want to come back too soon from those types of injuries. I mean, our boy Evran knows all about how bad an ACL injury can be and how long it can really... he's been theoretically fit to play again for a couple of months, but, then...
keeps having setbacks. Well, and don't forget Rashid Ghazal, right? He's kind of tried to come back a little too early on a couple of occasions, I think, and had setbacks.
And he didn't even have a very, on paper, his injury didn't even look that serious, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was a broken toe, but apparently that toe will never be 100% again from reports. I've heard from some doctors.
Certain bones in your toe, in your foot, like here, for example, obviously this is my hand. But if you break
the equivalent,
this bone, it's very hard to heal that, because you can't put that in plaster. You know what I mean? You can put, you can't properly wrap that. So it's very difficult to heal those types of injuries and to fully.
I broke my foot. Yeah, I broke my foot playing football on concrete. I tried to stop, and it was wet concrete. I tried to stop the ball. My foot slipped. My foot hit the ball and slipped into the concrete, and my foot I tried to play adult league football a couple of years ago, and I had 3 really good matches, and then my foot just started hurting so much. And I was like, all right, guys, I'm not getting paid enough. I'm not getting paid anything. This is not worth
this shit.
Destroying my life over. Yeah.
Was that American Sunday League, Sina?
Yeah, or the equivalent, basically. We have these adult professional leagues. It's pretty corny stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
We call those the veteran leagues, actually.
Yeah.
They
have Sunday League in the UK, otherwise known as the pub leagues, where pubs actually have football teams.
Yeah, we have those as well. Café voetbal.
Yeah, so they'll play a game, and then they'll go to the pub and get drunk after it.
Third half, right?
That's
the third half.
Do they have the pub sponsoring their shirt type of thing?
The clubs are named after their pubs, right?
The pubs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Kelly's FC or something like that.
This country is so bad about lower leagues, right? We have no promotion or relegation. I mean, it's crazy to have such a huge country with entire cities, cities as large as major cities in Europe that have no professional sports team, and somehow they can't figure out how to stoke interest in a sport. It's pretty obvious, man. Give them something to do. Give them somewhere to go on a Sunday afternoon, right? It's the most obvious thing in the world, but whatever.
All right, boys. I think we're going over 90 minutes now. I don't want to make these live streams too long. Is there anything you guys want to add to this episode? We talked about the Riza game coming up now. The Ankara game, we'll do an episode after the Riza game, I think. I was even thinking about potentially doing a live stream, a live watch along, not an actual episode, but just live stream the game. Not obviously the game, because we'd get copyright flag, but just us watching the game. I don't know if any of you guys are up for that.
I'm up for it. I have a comment to make. Kartal. Get yourself a battery, my friend.
Yeah, man.
Please. I don't, and forget the noise in the podcast. I'm worried about your safety, bro. What if you have a fire?
It's like that Chinese torture method with the water drops on your head, that constant,
exactly.
tweet. I would drive me insane. I know Kartal's in denial and says that he doesn't notice it anymore, but
I'm accustomed to it at this point. But no, you're all right. I do need to get it sorted, but it's one of those things. I can't really be bothered, but I do have to get around to it.
Just figure out what battery needs to go in, and I'll freaking order you one on Amazon. And
Send
send
it
it to you.
for
Nah, I'll get it. It's fine. Thanks, man.
All right. So, anything else like next season? I think we already talked a bit last week about the coaches. I think we'll keep that for another episode. We can, there's probably be plenty of times to deep dive on the coaching situation. When new news comes, when something concrete comes, we can talk about it. But there isn't much that came out this week, I think, in terms of coaching, potential coaching changes. So I don't know if there's anything you guys still want to talk about, but I think we're about ready to wrap this shit up.
Yeah, just obviously stay tuned for our match on Friday, and it's actually worth noting it moved from Sunday to Friday. They keep changing our schedule like this, like within the same week, which is, you got to be
I like
on your
Fridays.
toes.
I think
I do
Fridays
too.
is
No,
good.
I'm fine with it. It's just like give us some heads up, folks. Friday 1 p.m. here in New York, which means 7 p.m. in Belgium, Kaan, right? Which means 6 p.m. for you in Scotland, and what, 8 p.m. in Turkey?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. in Turkey, yep.
Exactly.
So yeah, Rizespor, huge match, and then obviously next Tuesday we have definitely the
Match
bigger
of the
match,
season.
the biggest match of the season, easily. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially now, right, with us dropping out of the top 5, that game just becomes more important by the minute.
Oof.
Yeah.
And it would be still fairly sublime if Fener got no titles despite spending the millions they spent, and we actually got a cup. That would be semi-miraculous.
Ultimate trollage.
Yeah. Exactly. Shall I wrap it up with my final comment?
Yeah, well, before we do that, guys, don't forget, please like, comment as well. Comment on our episodes, but like them. Subscribe to our channel if you're watching right now. You're not subscribed yet. Please subscribe to our Black Eagles YouTube channel. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on Instagram. Check it out on Twitter at Besiktas Podcast across the board. You can follow me, as you can see on the screen, at Razerian, RAZZERIAN. You can follow Sinan, as you can see on the screen right now, at Sir_Writes_a lot. And you can follow Kartal as well, at Kartal Ogur.
So that was classic. I should have done that. Damn.
So you can take us out with this one, then, Sinan, and you can do your.
I'll modify my classic ending, given that we're on YouTube now. So like, subscribe, follow, and let's go Besiktas! Oh, and of course, nowadays it's important that we also support the Knicks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Şimdi Bobo aldı. Bobo girdi. Bobo.
Peace out, everyone.
Bobo çok babasın. Çok harikasın.
Awesome, guys.
Çok güzelsin.
That was awesome.
Harika.
I love the new format. Dude, the graphics are looking great, man.
Bobo. 2-0. 2-0. 2-0. 2-0. Yüzlerce kez söylemek istiyorum. Lovren geldi. Dışarı attı. Goodbye Liverpool. Goodbye. Beşiktaş Liverpool'a gidiyor. Kara Kartal Ogur yapıyor. Beşiktaş Liverpool'a gidiyor.
That's our wrap, bro. All right.